Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dynamo Truth Health and Wellness, Better Brain and Body. I'm Maureen Greer, and I'm giving another episode of Holy Health to go over the sermon from Sunday and to encourage you to promote peace and pursue it, to seek it and pursue it, and to get a better brain and body using God's word and sound health advice for you. None of this is medical advice. It's just to encourage you to press on for better health so you can do God's will with vigor. The sermon I'm going to talk about is actually from November 6th, and it's on Daniel chapter 5, where Belshazzar, the king, gave a great banquet, and there was handwriting on the wall. And that's the title of the sermon, the handwriting on the wall. I am not going to read the whole chapter. Instead, I'm just going to read bits and pieces of it. The pastor, Chris Archgate, had three main points as usual, with many excellent subpoints underneath them and good tie-ins to our life. But let's start reading chapter 5 right now. I do encourage you to stop if you have to and read through it again and make sure you know what's going on in the chapter, because the handwriting on the wall is something we should not ignore. It is serious meaning that we need to take heed to. King Belshazzar gave a great banquet for 1,000 of his nobles and drank wine with them. While Belshazzar was drinking his wine, he gave orders to bring in the gold and silver goblets that Nebuchadnezzar, his father, had taken from the temple in Jerusalem, so that the king and his nobles, his wives, and his concubines might drink from them. So they brought in the gold goblets that had been taken from the temple of God in Jerusalem, and the king and his nobles, his wives, and his concubines drank from them. As they drank the wine, they praised the gods of gold and silver, of bronze, iron, wood, and stone. Suddenly, the fingers of a human hand appeared and wrote on the plaster of the wall near the lampstand in the royal palace. The king watched the hand as it wrote. His face turned pale, and he was so frightened that his legs became weak and his knees were knocking. Okay, I want to stop here and just point out a couple of things that Chris Arch pointed out. First of all, he gave a great banquet, so people were maybe a little intoxicated. He also had many nobles there. He was impressing people, so high officials would have been there. But when he brought in the gold and silver goblets that were from the temple in Jerusalem, that was as if it was the last straw, and God said, enough. And this is really important. Sometimes that happens in our bodies or our emotions or our brains, where it is the absolute last straw. Our body can't handle it anymore. We get sick. Our emotions can't handle it anymore. We blow a fuse and we respond in anger or impatience, or our mental clarity can't handle it anymore. And you can't take one more piece of studying or learning, and you need a break. You need rest. Let that be a warning to you. Your body can only take so much, and the older we get, our bodies have been having stressors put on them over and over again. We've had more and more medications thrown our way, more and more toxins thrown our way, more and more emotional and life changes coming our way. We're in a different phase of life. We're not strong and resilient like children are typically. And so we have to feed our health. We have to really take care of it. So look at that in your life. You might think, oh, things are fine. Well, they might be fine, but your body might be ready to finally become pale and weak-kneed because you add one more thing, and that's the last straw. It could be an emotional stressor. It could be a huge stressor of moving or someone dying or getting a virus you didn't plan on, and it's just too much for you to handle. And all of a sudden, you really start having health challenges. It could just be purely lack of sleep. But with everything else coupled on, it's enough to tip you over the edge and make you sick. So take heed to the handwriting on the wall. Don't wait for the doctor to tell you. Take care of yourself. The little things, the small things really matter. And especially honoring God with respect matters greatly. So anyway, the king summoned the enchanters, astrologers, and diviners. Then he said to these wise men of Babylon, whoever reads this writing and tells me what it means will be clothed in purple and have a gold chain placed around his neck, and he will be made the third highest ruler in the kingdom. Now, we all know that at this point, well, not yet, but he made a promise he will be clothed in a purple robe and a chain placed around his neck. I want you to realize in this chapter later on, he makes the same promise of this robe and chain around the neck of the person who interprets this. Well, we know Daniel will be brought in to interpret this dream. God gives him the ability. And at the end of the chapter, after the king gets the meaning of the handwriting on the wall, which wasn't good news, the king fulfilled that promise. So I want you to take heed to that integrity. If you make a promise, you stick with it. So be careful what you promise, but stay true to your word. If you don't, you will condemn yourself. You will have stress just because of that. That stress is no good. You'll feel guilty. That is not good. Makes you unhappy. Theoretically, you will regret that. So be careful what you say and what you vow. Now, then all the king's wise men came in, but they could not read the writing or tell the king what it meant. So the king Belshazzar became even more terrified, and his face grew more pale. His nobles were baffled. The queen, hearing this, she comes in on the scene and she reminds him, your father knew of a man. She brings up the history of what Daniel had done for Nebuchadnezzar, who, by the way, remember, he humbled himself. That's the last verse, last section of the previous chapter, how Nebuchadnezzar was humbled and he looked to the God of heaven. So Belshazzar obviously didn't take heed to the humility he possibly could have seen in his dad and what his dad learned. Take heed from the mistakes of other people. It is for your health. Don't wait for the handwriting on the wall to get healthy or to take heed. Do it now without extra handwriting on the wall. But the queen reminded him of that. So, of course, Daniel came in from retirement, as Chris Arch said. And here's a point he made. Always be ready to do the Lord's service, no matter what your age is. Be ready, be so known in your field and so expert that people look to you. There is no reason why you cannot be excellent in your field, no matter what it is. Whether you're a janitor, a garbage collector, an engineer, a lawyer, a nurse, a mother with her children, a preschool teacher, be so excellent that people look at you for the expertise there. Honor God through that. And he said, he just said, make sure you were living that kind of life. He had a good quote. I forget what it is. But anyway, Daniel came in and he was ready to do God's will. You be ready. And that's our whole reason for health, to be able to do God's will with vigor. Not our own agenda, but his will. So the feast of Belshazzar was given. There was poor discretion. And so their little thought processes were declining. Let that be a lesson too. Also, don't have poor discretion. Be thoughtful about the actions that you make every day, about the way you prepare for the day, the things you buy at the store. Prepare for success. Don't buy things that are going to end up being a temptation to you that you will regret later. Set yourself up for success when it's easy for you. It's easier to say no to something in the grocery store than it is in your pantry. Don't go down those food aisles. Don't go down the wayward path. Stick on the straight and narrow. Meat, vegetables, fruits, whole food, the things that God made. Stay away from boxes and bags. So stay away from those middle aisles in the grocery stores. Do the perimeter, shop the perimeter. Do your best to set yourself up for success. Over time, it will add up. Do yourself to set yourself up for success by setting the alarm and getting up at an appropriate time and also going to bed at an appropriate time so you have good sleep. Put water in a cup, get it ready so that you can drink it so they have adequate water, hydration. You can do it. And anyway, the wise men are 0 for 3 right now, as Chris Arch pointed out. And they were just average men, unlike Daniel, who was about 80 years old at this time. And the queen, of course, reminded him, how could people forget such a great momentous time when Daniel did this with King Nebuchadnezzar earlier? How could people forget the warnings that are given to them? Don't fall prey to that. Take the warnings that you know are true. Do not wait for your lab results to come back. and show that, oh, your number's okay this time. You know what might be causing you harm and damaging you. So try to avoid it. Don't wait for the number to show up, for the handwriting on the wall. By that point, it's going to be harder to make a turnaround in your health. Decide today you're going to do the things that promote health, peace in your brain, body, and beliefs. And that includes thinking on things that appear lovely and just. It includes reading God's word and focusing on his truth. And it includes nourishing your body with good food that God created and exercising, moving your body at whatever rate or action you can, using resistance training, just moving and having as much activity as possible. Deep breathing, taking in water, forgiving, having good relationships and staying connected to people, praying with people, letting others love you and loving other people. It even includes human touch, where you touch someone and they touch you with a hug. It all encourages your health. So stick at it. Don't wait for the handwriting on the wall to tell you you've ignored this too much and you've been too proud to do the basic things. Now the trouble is coming. It could show up with high blood pressure, cardiac disease, who knows what it could be. Anxiety, we don't know. It's different for everyone. Do what you can. Do it for yourself and your family. Anyway, I am going to hop to when the men failed and the king is pale and weak. And then Daniel gets the interpretation, acknowledges the Lord, and even says to the king in verse 19 or 17, you may keep your gifts for yourself and give your rewards to someone else. Nevertheless, I will read the writing for the king and tell him what it means. Then Daniel proceeds to tell the king what it means, but I love how he said, you can keep your gifts. Daniel did not need payment for this, and he had already acknowledged God before all. So the interpretation came from Daniel. He gave the truth, and the truth was not great. And he does say in there, those the king wanted to put to death, he put to death. Those he wanted to spare, he spared. Those he wanted to promote, he promoted. And those he wanted to humble, he humbled. But when his heart became arrogant and hardened with pride, he was deposed from his royal throne and ripped of his glory. He's talking about Nebuchadnezzar. He was driven away from people and given the mind of an animal. He lived with the wild donkeys and ate grass like the ox, and his body was drenched with the dew of heaven until he acknowledged that the Most High God is sovereign over all kingdoms on earth and sets over them anyone he wishes. But you, Belshazzar, his son, have not humbled yourself, though you knew all this. Okay, note to self. What do you know that you should do? We all know there are things that we should do. They're different from everyone. So what do you know that you should humble yourself and do? What change? What habit? It's between you and God. Only you know. Possibly those who love you know. But you definitely know. It's between you and God. And if you don't know, ask the Lord to show you. Lord, what do you want me to do? It says in James, if you lack wisdom, ask. The Lord will show you. He's kind and merciful, and he is able to show you. Listen to the quiet voice. So instead, verse 23, you have set yourself up against the Lord of heaven. You had the goblets from his temple brought in. As I said earlier, that was pointed out in the sermon. That was the last straw. And you and your nobles, your wives, and your concubines drank wine from them. You praised the gods of silver and of gold and of bronze, iron, wood, and stone, which cannot see or hear or understand, but you did not honor the God who holds in his hand your life and all your ways. Don't forget that God holds your life in his hands and all your ways. He will help you. He is merciful. He wants to extend kindness to you. Don't ever doubt it. And even in your health and your peace of mind, God wants you to have that in him so you can do his will. Therefore, he sent the hand that wrote the inscription, And it is, God has numbered your days, the days of your reign, and brought it to an end. You have been weighed on the scales and found wanting, and your kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and Persians. Then at Belshazzar's command, Daniel was clothed in a purple, and a gold chain was placed around his neck, and he was proclaimed the third highest ruler in the kingdom. That very night, Belshazzar, king of the Babylonians, was slain, and Darius the Mede took over the kingdom at the age of 62. Now, Belshazzar, as was pointed out in the sermon, a president we had, Richard Nixon, during Watergate, was not calm, cool, and collected. Anyway, they brought someone in, it was Billy Graham, and he was able to pray with the president, calm him down, and convince him to resign. Well, Nixon became calm, and then he ended up resigning. That's what we want to do for our body. We want to have homeostasis. We want calmness. We want our body to be at equilibrium, so to speak. I likened Billy Graham coming in to blood sugar regulation. When we don't have blood sugar regulation, whether it's due to stress, ingestion of sugar, ingestion of any bad food that spikes our blood sugar because it doesn't have the fiber in it, poor eating, lack of sleep, when we have poor blood sugar regulation, it creates stress in our bodies. We don't have homeostasis. That stress is behind disease and illness. And that is not what we want. We want the Billy Graham to come in. We want blood sugar regulation to come in. And how do we do that? We do that by sleeping, by drinking adequate water, by resting, by eating colors of the rainbow and fat, fiber, and protein at every meal. If you have just sugar, you're spiking your blood sugar, and then you'll plummet later. So if you're a parent and you're giving your child a donut for breakfast or as a snack, you just gave that child a Richard Nixon moment, a Watergate moment where things are out of control and you're going to plummet. You're going to have to resign. You need to give your children and yourself fat, fiber, and protein when you eat. Don't deprive yourself of them. You don't want just carbohydrates and sugar. You need the fat for hormone production. You need the protein for muscle cells to work, for healing your injuries, your wound healing. You need it for your cells need protein. We break down proteins every day and we build it up for muscle every day. We repair. We need protein for that, for neurotransmitters. So blood sugar regulation is optimized when you have protein, especially earlier in the day. Do it. It's good for your health. And I suggest when you are wondering how much protein you should have, well, take whatever you weigh. So if you weigh 200 pounds, you should be getting 100 grams of protein a day. If you're a weight builder and you're working out a lot, a young man, you need more. If you're a little old lady, you want protein to help your body from losing protein. It all matters. Take heed to the handwriting on the wall. Keep your blood sugar regulated by sleeping, eating right, drinking water, trying to remain stress-free, deep breathing, thinking on things that are pure, lovely, and just, having fellowship and surrounding yourself with love. That helps it all to calm you down so you can be in a homeostasis. Today, I was stressed out quite a bit of the day. And at one point in the day, someone just showed kindness to me or just did something. It wasn't a huge deal. It was just something. And it made me feel so much better. It just nourished me. Let others do that for you. Sometimes that has to happen. And sometimes it has to be you nourishing other people. Be ready for it. That's part of God's will. Well, that's about all I have for it. Oh, don't soft sell what God is able to do. Point to Christ. God is able to help you in your health. Don't soft sell the truth, and I won't either. So I'm going to tell you, in order for you to be healthy, it is really good to consider what you're putting in your body. Get away from the bags and boxes. Get away from gluten, dairy, and sugar. I'm just going to say it. There's so much better food out there to be eating than gluten, dairy, and sugar. Limit it. See how you react to it. It could be harming you and you don't know it. Your symptoms of fatigue, brain fog, inflammation, anything, aching in the joints, new diagnosis, digestive issues could be rooted in those things, and getting rid of them will help you to feel better. Your anxiety and depression could be because you don't have enough protein, so you don't have enough neurotransmitters for serotonin production, enough protein for that. You may be poor chewing and poor stomach acid. Chew your food. Do all the little things you can do before you run to a doctor and take medication. I'm not saying to ignore your doctor. I'm not saying not to go. I'm just saying do what you can. Exercise, eat right, sleep, forgive, and of course, walk humbly before God. Notice the handwriting on the wall, even if it's somebody else's wall. You notice the handwriting on the wall so that you don't have to have that on your wall. Take heed now. That's it for Daniel 5 on Holy, Holy Health for the sermon from November 6th. Remember, everybody, our health, the whole purpose of our health is to do God's will with vigor, to seek peace and pursue it, to do good, to fret not. So go with it, everyone. I hope you're encouraged. See you next time. Until then, seek peace and pursue it. Bye-bye.